Well, all the rumors can subside. Marvel is staying with Hasbro. Now I'm wondering how many people will immediately be irritated that I'm going to follow that up with, good. Listen, I'm not against change. And I do admit that we've had Marvel in one place for so long that at this point it's pretty much impossible to guess what could have been had it went other places. One could argue that it would be worse in other places, better in other places. What if Jada got the Marvel license? We've seen some real attention to detail. And what seems like love and affection for the properties they get their hands on. Let's be honest, the Street Fighter has pivoted them into the top interests of a lot of different collectors. That line seems to have proved by itself that Jada deserves attention. Then we follow that up with Mega Man, which so far is a very solid line. Then we follow that up with a new Scooby-Doo, and just one thing after another that Jada seems to put out seems to be very high quality. And I will admit there are certain things that Jada does that I wish other companies would get in on. Like the hair solution that Jada has come up with is brilliant. We do all these rubber capes, but we do hard plastic hair. Why? And I mean everybody. By the way, not just some companies, like everybody. Even the new Icons line with figures like Tigra. Hard plastic hair. Like, it folds back enough that it's not too much in her way, but she ain't looking up. Like, hard plastic hair doesn't make any sense. That's why it was so amazing to see Jada be like, what if the hair was like a rubberish material? Or something of that nature. Something more pliable. And then all of a sudden the characters can look up. They can look right. They can look left. They can look down. Nothing stops their movement. Brilliant. We've seen things like wired capes on the characters that need them. And so on and so forth. Wouldn't it have been cool to get a Gambit in this scale with the level of detail that they like to put into their figures? Along with that jacket that's actually wireframe? Would that be cool? Could we expect that the stuff that comes with each character would be unique and interesting? What about a Jubilee? I know Jubilee's not everybody's favorite. But a Jubilee that actually came with like a stand with a bunch of the plasmoids. Boo! What about Gambit, but instead of just coming with like a weird hand that like kind of looks like he's throwing cards, what if they gave you some card effects on a stand? Like, that's a big Jada thing. So you would imagine that different characters would come with things that would make sense to them. Power effects. And you're talking about a universe that could really use power effects. Maybe some of them could come with like little areas. Like if you're going to release a Hulk that has like a little damaged street indent or something. So you can have like a little area where he's landed or something, right? Or where he's punched down on the ground. And for that matter, you want your Hulk to clap? I don't see that Jada wouldn't have got it right. Try one. But that's not all. One could also argue that it would be very cool to finally have DC and Marvel in the same scale. And we have seen a couple of McFarlane figures that can actually hit crazy poses. So when he wants to, the articulation for something like Spider-Man can work. I do believe this. We have seen it in a couple of figures. I realize that a lot of his figures feel kind of rigid, And I'm not denying that. But also, by moving over to something like McFarlane, we could also guarantee certain other features. Like, can you imagine a McFarlane figure in this scale with this kind of attention for Black Cat? And McFarlane tends to take a couple more risks. McFarlane, it would have been interesting to see something like, we probably could have got things like Mary Jane. Now, that's not to say that we haven't got such a thing in Marvel. I have a Mary Jane, but she was also sold in like a 2-pack. And also we have like a classic Gwen. And then I think, did she come with a swappable Mary Jane head so you could just use that body for whichever you wanted? But that's another key right there. They probably would have looked different, had different body sculpts instead of just the one body that we can reuse. A Captain America in that line would have been large and everything, would have matched up with Superman. You could have put him next to the Superman. I'm saying that while it wouldn't have been 1,000% ideal, we still would have got stuff. And let's be honest about McFarlane here for a second. He also takes certain risks that others won't take. Can you imagine getting a chance to own the Blackbird? A modern day scale Blackbird. A huge toy. We've seen the Batmobiles and the Batwings. That one Batwing that was absolutely ridiculous, that went to retail. So we could have been looking at a whole new era of releases, right? That would have been interesting. What if it would have went to Mattel? And with Mattel already grabbing up the DC license, had we received information that Mattel also got the Marvel license, we could have seen a Heroes line where they just literally produced each wave half Marvel, half DC. All at the same scale, all at the same design. That would have been a crazy line. I'm sure that it would have got attention. What I'm saying here is that change could have been very exciting. But there's also something to be said about sticking to the road we're on. Marvel Legends has slowly but surely gotten better with every release. And in some cases, they are willing to try things. Build-A-Figures and things like that have been a big staple of the line for a very long time. We're still actually getting Build-A-Figures today. What if we continue this? Is that so bad? Look at the new Hulk that came out. We tried something new. Not everybody's on board with it, and some people are a little irritated about it, but the Max Hulk is trying something new. A new idea, replacing the chest with that rubber piece or whatever, and adding deep, deep butterflies. Do I think that should become a standard? I don't know. I would argue maybe not. There is a lot of concern from a lot of people that later on it may harden out and crack, or it may discolor and things of that nature, and I'm kind of right there with you. I get the idea. That may not be built for long term, but I would also argue in most cases, most toys are never built for long term. They're built for right now. And most toys, realistically, do not stand the test of time in the same condition that they originally came out in. Case in point, that's why retro figures sometimes demand such high, ridiculous prices. Toys get played with, they get posed, they get moved, they get put in boxes, and then they get exposed to the elements. And then before you know it, the plastic brittles, they get discoloration, The little rubber pieces inside of them kind of go bad. The overshell or whatever goes bad. Sometimes the back doesn't quite hold the little backpacks anymore the way that it used to. Sometimes they didn't figure for the way that the top heavy figure, the legs would eventually no longer hold the weight, and it would cause problems where they constantly fall over and things like that. Toys are always built with the possibility that they will not survive the test of time. Look at all the G.I. Joe figures that are coming out that have all the extra stuff. The belt thing here that actually holds the knife and the things like that. Are those pieces? They're kind of a rubber piece. Won't they possibly at some point harden, crack, give out, and no longer be useful? I don't know. I don't know. You don't know. If we're being perfectly honest, we don't know. We won't know till years down the line. That's the way toys happen. We didn't know that He-Man would have trouble standing up years later as that little plastic band inside of him deteriorated. Sorry, rubber band. We didn't know that Joes would loosen over time and get like super wobbly. Like where they don't really stand up anymore in their knees and arms. You just kind of, like where you take your Joe and you do this and they just flap all over the place. It never felt like they would end up like that when you were playing with them as a kid, but they do. Look, guys, that's the nature of toys. But Marvel is at a place with Hasbro where it can deep dive. It has access to just about everything. We've gotten characters you never thought you would have got. We just got 1970s television Spider-Man. I got the Japanese Spider-Man right there. We have multiple Black Widows, multiple Captain Americas, even from storylines people were all mad about. We have the Captain Hydra. If you have a favorite Captain America, if it happens to be Sam Wilson, he's there for you, both in movie form and comic book form. If you want him to be the Falcon, we have him in movie form and comic book form. There are animated versions of these characters. Look, if we went to any other line, they would have to start all over. And if the option available to try something else, it is there. SH Fig Arts is making different figures from Marvel, and you can go get those. We see things like the, is it 112 Mezco? Or don't they do some Marvel stuff? Didn't they do like a Fantastic Four pack or something like that? I think they've done quite a few things, but I'm just I feel like they've done Wolverines and all kinds of stuff, and they have soft goods and stuff of that nature. If you want to jump into bigger, more elaborate toys, there's things like Hot Toys and whatnot. There's Mondo doing the giant 1/6 animated series figures like Spider-Man and the X-Men. The options are there to check out other possibilities. And I'm not saying that another company wouldn't have given us something that we really would have said, oh man, this is what I've been waiting for. But there is something to be said for the fact that there are always options, always deep dives with the line that we currently have because it has run for so long. And there's absolute undeniable improvement across the entire line as time has gone on. That's why we constantly say things like, this character really needs an update, because it hasn't been released for a while, and we know that the line gets better and better and better and better. It's a little bit irritating because you do find yourself in that situation where you go, I've already got a tiger stripe Wolverine. Do I really need that one? Or like with me, not way too long ago, I've already got the brown suit Wolverine. Do I really need the Secret Wars one? And I did pass on the Secret Wars brown suit Wolverine. Maybe had I come across it in a store and looked it directly in the face, maybe I would have. But on paper, or on screen, I guess, when I just looked at the screen and said, well, I've got one and I'm actually pretty happy with it. I don't think that I need that. That was fine. I moved on. That's another thing. With Marvel Legends staying where it is, there are multiple figures that you can skip, save money, pivot your money into a different collection line or a different project. You don't need every single variant that comes out. Maybe the next Spider-Man, since you've already got a Maximum, or maybe you have a Renew Your Vows and Maximum just didn't seem like it was worth it. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm not taking a side yet. I'm saying that you can actually make that decision with Marvel Legends. If you like the Hulk that you have, you don't need Maximum Hulk. It does nothing for you. Walk away. And you don't have to worry about the fact that you did skip a character. Sometimes the characters are just put back out because somebody doesn't have one yet. And sometimes the advancements are not good enough yet for you to worry about it. So you just go, I've got that. And you move on with your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. I don't yet have a red Daredevil. I hear that Secret Wars is going to do a Daredevil. I'm very excited that might be finally a single-carded red Daredevil. That's for me. Will it have enough advancement that it's for you? If you've already got one? I don't know. Maybe not. And that's not a bad thing. One could argue in some cases that's a good thing, because we spend enough money as it is. I think there are good things and bad things to the fact that Marvel's going to stay where it is. And I think that in the long run, hopefully, some characters that we need updates of, or just need in general, I feel like, on a personal level, we need a pretty serious update to the, I would like to have a Black Cat, like a good Black Cat, like a solid, new body Black Cat. That would be really cool. I'd really enjoy that. I would like to see the Fantastic Four fully updated. I would like to see the Thing get an update where he actually has like the dual elbows and everything and can actually move and can do things like this. Because this is a very, very thing. He needs to be able to do things like this. But most of the time he kind of can't. Because his arms are kind of like, I got this thing going on. There are many updates in the line that we need. There are many figures in the line that we don't need updates of necessarily. We just need a straight release so that we can just finally get one. But they have time to do that now, too, which is another benefit. Some collectors would be mad that they release figures that they've already released because they go, oh, that's going to bring the value of my figure down. Well, if you're collecting for monetary purposes, I'm not on your side. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm on the side that people that want these figures get these figures. That's the side I'm on. So when figures go the wayside and they disappear and they don't come back for like 2, 3, 4 years and nobody can get them and they cost like $130-something online on the secondary market, and then Marvel says, hey, by the way, here. I'm for that. I'm for that. That's what I want. I want these figures to come back into circulation every now and then so that everybody has a chance at a Green Goblin, so that everybody has a chance at a Hobgoblin, so that everybody has a chance at whatever it is that you just never had a chance to get. And they have the time to do that now with what, another 5-6 year contract? And if they get their stuff together, the Maximum line could have some very real promise in the future. I still want to rewatch that release, though, of the Maximum Spider-Man. Because I'm hearing a lot of people claim that the Maximum line was supposed to be all brand new sculpts. Did they say that exactly? Because I remember them saying, this is our Spider-Man, he's a brand new sculpt, an all new sculpt. But I seem to remember, and like I said, I got to rewatch this, didn't they just claim that the Maximum line would be the best possible version of each character so far? That, like, if you entered the Maximum line with, say, the Invisible Woman, she would not get the old body. She would be repivoted onto the new female body buck, and she would actually be the Maximum version. We would get, like, a couple of different things. We'd get, like, a platform thing that she could, like, fly on, a full body shield that she could enact with 2 hands and different things like that. That would be cool. In fact, I would argue that would be Maximum. But other characters, like large characters, maybe we get an awful lot of reuse for the Thing, but they fix his arms and give him movement. Like they actually put those cuts in those butterflies and allow him to do full-on movement, right? That would actually be pretty cool. So, I don't know, in terms of this line, if there's a lot of people that are misunderstanding it, or if they're like putting their own emphasis on it. Spider-Man was an all-new sculpt. All of it's supposed to be all-new sculpts. Did they say that? Because I'm fighting with myself up here, trying to remember if that's exactly what they said. Because I seem to remember this is our new Maximum line. It's the best version of these characters that you can possibly get. And it's going to come with a bunch of stuff. But I don't remember them saying that the Maximum line would be all new sculpts. Maybe they did. I got to go back and check it out. Because if they did do that, then they need to get their stuff together. But I don't know. I actually think this is good news in a way. And I know there were a lot of people that were excited and had this idea that we could finally like move past and get like some new stuff in here. But also from what we're dealing with the current DC line and having to restart our collections and how that feels, I'm not necessarily excited to restart my collection on DC and Marvel at the exact same time. I only have so much money. What do you think? Get out of here.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.